Welcome into the Kickoff Show presented by Axalta. I'm Gabriella DiGiovanni, joined here with Fran Duffy. Eagles preseason finale tonight, and it's a wet one.
Yeah, R-A-I-N, rain, rain, rain. That is all we've gotten so far up at MetLife Stadium, but the rain has stopped. It's a little bit drier. Looks like we're going to get kickoff here in just under 45 minutes, Ella.
Yeah, kickoff got delayed to 8 p.m., but the guys are out there now getting warmed up. This is a live look at warm-ups presented by PA Lottery. How's it looking out there? It looks a little better than it did just a bit ago.
Even like 15, 20 minutes ago, but looks like they're going to get this in. The Eagles taking the field today. And look, this is after a nice week of practice up in Parsippany Hills.
Yeah, joint practices on Tuesday and Wednesday. Now, Nick Sirianni, his philosophy is these joint practices are like game situations, right? So if you're still with me at home and doing the math, that would make the game tonight like preseason game number 7. Now, It's especially important to get this game in tonight for those guys fighting for a spot on this 53-man roster. As we know, big roster cuts coming on Tuesday. The roster will be cut down from 80 players to 53.
Yeah, it's a big night for a lot of players, not just here in Philadelphia, but around the NFL, fighting for roster spots on the bottom end. You're talking about 45 through 53, depending on the team. But then also, it's not just, hey, are they going to be able to stick here in Philadelphia? For all of these players, you're fighting for your professional life because all 32 teams get this film. So you're trying to build your resume for all other 31 teams as well to be able to see what you put on tape. The guys that are taking the field tonight, it's one of the biggest nights of their lives.
And you have to remember, last year there was no preseason. So if you were a player who would normally be fighting for a spot last year and you have a chance to fight again, this means even more.
No question. And that's why getting this game in tonight is big for a lot of players. I don't think it's something that they are going to take for granted. As we see here, Sua Opeta, Nate Herbig. I would expect to see plenty of those two guys tonight. We'll see who else suits up alongside them along the offensive line. But Nate Herbig has been playing mostly at center. Sua Opeta at guard. We'll see who plays the tackle spots tonight. But again, a big night across the board for this Eagles offense. And on the defensive side as well, a lot of battles hopefully can get closed out here tonight.
Absolutely. Fran, you were up there checking out practice this week.
Yep.
How did it look to you?
Yeah, we talked about it Tuesday and Wednesday over on the Eagle Eye in the Sky podcast. And on Tuesday, I focused in on the offense, and I thought that the pass game was really, really sharp. Both quarterbacks performed very well. We saw wide receivers making high-flying grabs at all 3 levels of the field. That was great to see. And then on Wednesday, Ella, I focused in on the defense, and it was more of the same. You've been at practice pretty much every day here this summer. The defensive line has been near unblockable. That carried through up to North Jersey. Those guys were outstanding. So getting a chance to watch both of those guys, both sides of the football, I thought it was a really sharp week of practice.
That defensive line has been getting a lot of buzz through camp, right? During camp, we talk a lot about newer guys, seeing new faces around the building, but you can't forget the vets the Philadelphia Eagles have, especially in that defensive side of the ball. But a rookie that has also been getting, there's a vet himself.
There's one of those vets.
There he is, not suited up, BG tonight. Look at him, loving it, loving it.
I can just hear the laugh without being there.
I know.
It just makes me smile.
I know.
love it.
That smile makes you smile, right? But back to that D-line. Rookie Milton Williams, right? He's been getting a lot of buzz, too. Dave Spadaro called up with him this week in New Jersey. But I think there he is. I think the thing that's been giving him a lot of attention is his ability to play all along that defensive line. And that's what coaches like. A guy like him who's a rookie, he just comes in and he's willing to play. He's willing to be coached. And he said this week to Dave Spadaro, he said that Fletcher Cox is in his ear in practice all day long. BG sits next to him in the film room. So he's walking him through everything they see on film. So I'm excited to see him play tonight. Obviously, he's been getting a lot of attention, but he's a humble guy. He knows he wants to go out there and play super well tonight.
I mean, just think of the factors that if you would want to try and build a good situation for a player with his upside, right? I mean, he tested like an athletic freak, and everything that he does away from the field, he gets it. He does everything correctly. So he comes into a situation where, yeah, he's versatile. He can do a number of different things. All right, I'm going to back up an elite all-pro defensive tackle like Fletcher Cox, and I'm going to back up one of the best defensive ends in the NFL over the last decade in Brandon Graham. And I'm just going to soak up as much as possible from both of those guys. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better situation for Milton Williams. And this is a player, look, we say this every time this week, right? Getting up for those final cuts. It's all about the more you can do. And so when you're a guy like Milton Williams and you can offer depth at defensive tackle, depth at defensive end. He's going to make the team as a third-round pick almost assuredly anyway.
Sure.
But for when you're talking about guys that are trying to make their case to make the final 53, that versatility goes a long way.
Absolutely. My favorite line that he gave Dave this week is that his notebook is very thick. He said he's going to need another one soon. But that's what you like to hear from a rookie, right?
No question.
Let's turn things over to the offensive side of the ball. I think a huge position group that we want to see tonight who are fighting for those last spots on the roster are the running backs.
Yeah, it's a really fun group that has made some plays throughout camp, but not just as runners, but as receivers as well. We've talked about that plenty here on this show every single week, how these backs are going to be involved in the passing game. And so, Boston Scott, very, very involved. Kenny Gainwell saw a lot of reps working with the ones this week. He looks like he's going to carve out a role here as a rookie, and I'm excited to see what he looks like. We'll see how much run he gets tonight, but plenty of backs in that backfield looking to try and make a case to make the roster.
I think to see the evolution through camp is just neat. To see someone like Kenny Gainwell start at camp kind of wondering, well, what are we going to get from him, right? We didn't know what to expect from Kenny Gainwell. And then these past 2 weeks, he's really started to separate himself, really make a name for himself. We've seen him all over the field at practice. And so we know tonight's important for him too. Yeah,
you think about it, again, this is a player that did not play football a year ago. So his first action since, a year and a half, since January of 2019 or January of 2020, that's big for a guy to be able to kind of get his sea legs back and be able to get that feel of the game, that speed of the game. And it's going to be a lot different in the NFL than what he saw at Memphis. So obviously a huge, huge jump, and it's good to see him kind of get more and more comfortable over the course of the summer.
There's Mr. Darius Slay warming up himself. We probably won't see him suit up, I would assume. Yep, he didn't suit up last week as well, as most of the starters will be sitting out. But he is just so energized about this team. Every time he talks to the media, Darius Slay is excited. The way this defense has been described by multiple players is resilient. I think that's an interesting word to hear to describe a defense.
Yeah, I think when you look at the way that they play like they've got a chip on their shoulder, right? The way that they fly to the football, lots of white jerseys around the foot. And just take note of that while we're watching. And again, not all of these guys you're watching, a majority of them may not be on this roster a week from now, right? But just watch the mentality, because the style, that's what they're coaching. The coaches, they're coaching these guys the same way they coach the starters. So they're going to hold them to that same standard. So the play style, what you're going to see tonight on both sides, that's how the starters are being coached as well. So you just keep an eye out for that. When they're on defense, a lot of white jerseys at the football every single play.
Another position group that's been getting a lot of attention through camp is that wide receiver room. We don't know who we'll see play tonight, but the big names we've been seeing the past 2 weeks through camp would be, of course, Jalen Reagor, Devontae Smith, and Quez Watkins. When we talked to Avonte Maddox this week, he said, look, Quez has always been fast. That's the buzz now after we've seen him really explode in these preseason games. He said, but now his offseason work is really being shown on the field. I think that's the big story about Quez Watkins is, he might have always been fast, but now the league's on watch.
Yeah, you can roll out of bed and run 4.3. You can't roll out of bed and always be ready to be a starting wide receiver in the NFL. And I think that that's a good example of a player that, look, there's a difference between timing fast and playing fast. And we're seeing a guy now that's starting to play faster because he's getting a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more confident in everything that he's doing. You see it, and him too is a good example. He's playing inside more, so showing off that versatility. Because remember, it's not just about guys that are fighting for jobs in the 53. It's about fighting for the pecking order on where you're on the depth chart. So him showing off, hey, you know what? I can play inside, I can play outside. Whatever you need me to do, I can return kicks, I can do, I can play as a gunner. Whatever you need me to do, I can do it.
And Sirianni's been asked a lot about this wide receiver room, and what I thought was interesting he said this week is that they're interchangeable. You kind of just touched on this. He said, I have guys that can play anywhere. And so, yes, they're speedy, they're fast, but the ability to change where they line up, he said, is going to mix up defenses. It's hard to game plan against, and it's going to cause some confusion in a game situation.
I think, honestly, that this is the way that the league has been transitioning for years and years now, is trying to gear more towards that. I feel like it has been pronounced. It's turned into a little bit of a storyline here over the last couple of weeks. But I think you look at Eagles teams in the past over the last few years, and it's been that way. You want these guys to be able to line up in a number of different spots, and it goes back to what I just said. The more you can do, when you're in an offense, you're trying to find different ways to be able to beat a defense that given week. And so the more answers you've got, the more tools you have in your toolbox. Hey, you know what? They really lack speed at the slot corner position. If we can find a way to be able to isolate Quez Watkins inside against a slower slot corner, that's a win. Or, hey, you know what? This time, this guy's not really great against sharp route runners. Let's get Greg Ward inside. Or he might struggle with the speed or the size and strength of a Jalen Reagor. Let's get him inside. Now you've got lots of different tools in the toolbox to attack a defense.
We saw Zach Ertz back there, obviously not suited up as well. Fran, what kind of insight can you give about these tight ends that we've seen in practice? Because the way Ertz and Dallas Goedert have really showed up these past few weeks is impressive. And it's things that Eagles fans haven't gotten to see much. Obviously, we're out at practice every day, but not seeing them play too much in the preseason games. What can you tell Eagles fans at home?
Those two tight ends have been outstanding. When you look at Dallas Goedert and Zach Ertz, and I know last year left a little bit of a bad taste in people's mouths, just about the offense in general, right? But it just was not operating as efficiently as you would like. There were a lot of down moments, and a lot of that, a lot of people will point to Zach Ertz and say, oh, has he lost a step? I look at Zach Ertz, and he looks like Zach Ertz. He looks like number 86, the guy that's catching game-winning touchdowns in the Super. He has looked really good here this summer, and I think that's good for this Eagles offense. That's a good sign for that group, that entire offense as a whole. So excited to see what this group looks like here moving into week 1.
Certainly what Eagles fans want to hear. Those are the head coaches meeting up there on the field. Two guys kind of new to this role.
Yeah, you got Robert Saleh over with the New York Jets. Nick Sirianni obviously in the foreground there of the Philadelphia Eagles. Two head coaches that are doing this for the very first time, and both bring outstanding energy to the practice field. And you saw that here this week when the Eagles practiced up at Florham Park in New Jersey. A lot of energy on both sidelines.
I want to talk a little bit about Jason Kelce. You can see him in the back. If you've been tuning into Eagles social media, you would have seen him slipping and sliding across the field earlier tonight. That is some legendary stuff. But he's been a big storyline because I think people forget just how good Jason Kelce is. We've been spoiled here in Philadelphia to have one of the best centers, arguably to have ever played the game here for so long. And the way he's still, after all these years, has shown up at camp, especially this week, he had a great outing against the Jets. I think people forget just how good he is and what he means to this team and what his knowledge does in making this team better.
It is not easy to play offensive line in the NFL. It is not a fun job. If you don't love it, it's very difficult. And I thought that even just seeing him do the little slip and slide routine, he's out there running in a driving thunderstorm, running laps around the field, and then slides into the tunnel. He is a psycho in the best sense of the word. Like the way that I love offensive linemen, like that is Jason Kelce. It is just so awesome to see, and I think it's a great example of what makes him so great, why he is still playing at this point in his career and playing at such a high level. It's because he loves it. He loves every single day, every single step of the process. It's a rain out. You'd expect, grizzled vet, we're sitting in the locker room, like, what are we doing here? Like, I haven't practiced for 2 days. I've been up here in North Jersey away from my family. No, he loves every single step of the process, and that was a great example.
Well, and I think that's what makes him so valuable. Off the field stuff, right? Yeah. His attitude, his passion, that's all real. That's him. I mean, the way you picture him on the steps of the art museum in his mummer's costume is truly how he approaches the game, how he brings to this organization and this team every single day in practice. It's so true. There's younger guys on the offensive line getting warmed up. It doesn't look too bad now. What do you think, Fran?
Yeah, it's looking pretty good. It looked bleak there for a little bit, but it looks like they're going to get this in, thankfully. Like I said, it's a huge night for so many players on this roster.
Earlier this week at practice, I know Wednesday was a heavy red zone day.
Yes.
So how do you think getting those live reps, especially in the red zone, will help this offense develop?
That's such a good question because it's really kind of paints the picture of why these joint practices are so valuable. And obviously that's been a big topic of discussion is how valuable is this compared to preseason action? Well, let's say you're a head coach and you're looking to play your offense in preseason games. The goal of that is to get them ready for situations they're going to face in the regular season. Well, if you can line up on Wednesday afternoon down in the red zone as a defense or as an offense, and you get 8 to 10 reps against another team, and they're high energy reps. The Eagles had some live reps this week and down on the goal line. that is a good replacement for a preseason game where you're not going live to the ground. So you take the injury risk out, and now you're weighing that against each other and say, all right, well, we got some high energy reps against another defense. They executed well. That's all we need to see. Let's put this to bed. Those are the reps that we hoped we would get in preseason action. Now we can let these other guys vie for playing time here.
I think another good thing to see is some of those defensive players getting fired up.
Yes.
It is a preseason game. They've been sitting in the locker room for quite a few hours now. They started warming up. They went inside. Now they're back out. So to see the energy high, the energy's up, morale seems pretty good. I think it's a good sign for this team, right? Because as we start to enter, we're getting out of training camp time. You start to enter the grind of prepping week in and week out for a game. You're on the road. You're back and forth. It's the energy, it's the morale, I think, is kind of what makes or breaks a team. And it's looking pretty good right now.
So just when you were saying that, obviously we're looking at Joe Flacco here, the Eagles' backup quarterback right now, preparing to play in this game. Remember, he was a Super Bowl MVP in a game where the halftime, there was the power outage at the stadium. You had that long period where they had to wait to go back out for the second half. I wonder if Joe Flacco talked about those memories. Obviously, a much different stage. You're getting ready for this one, not the Super Bowl. But to me, it's all about just these guys getting ready to play. And you see so many young players coming across our screen. John Hightower, you see him there, number 82. He didn't play in the first preseason game. We didn't see a ton of him last week against New England. He didn't have a preseason last year, right? So this is his time to shine. He's going to get a lot of run tonight. But let's see what number 82 can do.
How much do you think Sirianni's energy kind of plays into the smiles we've seen from the guys, the fun it seems like they're having at practice? I do feel like a lot of the time that we spend with the players and media availabilities are even high energy. Of course, you have Darius Slay always trying to interrupt. You have Boston Scott messing around. How much do you think Sirianni's energy and kind of the fresh blood around the building has played into the way this team is developing off the field?
I mean, that carries through, no question. You could feel it when you're in the building for meetings. You could feel it out on the practice field. You could feel it when the guys are coming off the field, getting ready for a meeting. You talk about, Boston Scott and Slay and guys, the guys are having fun. And you like to be able to have that kind of energy and build that kind of culture in your locker room. And that comes from the top down.
There's the wide receivers. We talked about them. A lot at stake for that group tonight.
Yes.
There's been three in particular, like we said, that have definitely made a name for themselves. But there's more spots up for grabs. And what they do tonight, hopefully they'll work well with the quarterback situation, is going to be very telling about what's to happen, what's to come on Tuesday.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a big night for so many position groups. And it's actually kind of fun, too, seeing some of these vets out there. You see Anthony Harris catching the pass. We saw his mic'd up, his audible segment just went out on PhiladelphiaEagles.com. Just go check that out. That was a lot of fun. You want to make sure you go check that on the Eagles social channels as well. Take a look at some of these second-year receivers. There's Quez Watkins, number 16. John Hightower, as we mentioned a little bit earlier. But it's such a big night for a lot of these guys. And look, we'll see. Quez Watkins suited up. We'll see if he gets some run tonight.
Well, we won't see quarterback Jalen Hurts playing tonight. We also didn't see him last week due to an illness. But our Eagles insider, Dave Spadaro, was also up in New Jersey this week, and he was able to catch up with the quarterback.
I think we've taken huge steps. From run game to pass game to everything. From learning the scheme, I know that's always a big challenge. Coming into another year, learning the scheme personally, but the team as well. So taking their coaching, applying it to the field, and just growing with every day. We want to win. We want to win big. And we want to continue to grow. Take the steps we need to take every day, but we want to win, and to do that, you have to put your daily deposits in and understand renters do every day. Attack every day. Come in with the right mentality, a right approach to everything, and just attack every day. But I think we're heading in the right direction with this thing. I'm excited.
You can catch that full interview up right now on PhiladelphiaEagles.com. I think that interview was super helpful in Eagles fans really getting an inside look on what goes on in Jalen Hurts' head, who he is as a player. Obviously, we know he's a good player, but what makes him so great? A lot of guys talked about this week how he was locked in, and he communicated that. He was ready to play. He was ready to compete with the Jets, and he had a great week of practice.
Yeah, Jalen Reagor talked about that on the bus ride over on the first day of practice. Jalen Hurts turned around and said, I'm in that mode. And to me, honestly, I thought Jalen looked as good as he has looked all summer this week. Watching him on Tuesday, he made plays from the pocket. He was able to run away from pressure and make plays down the field. He had big throws to Quez Watkins, big throws to Jalen Reagor, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. He dropped a dime over the shoulder, like 40 yards downfield to Dallas on the first day of practice on Tuesday. Jalen Hurts looked outstanding this week in practice. It's a really good sign. Just see him continue to develop. Obviously, it's just practice, but you love to see the improvements that he has made.
In that mode. That's what we like to hear. Well, let's get into some game time mode, shall we, Fran? What are you looking for tonight?
I think, to me, a big buzzword for tonight is just to finish strong. I think you can look at that from a macro sense and say, look, the Eagles have lost the first 2 preseason games, finish strong, go out in the summer on a high note. But then you can look at it from a micro sense. Offensively, finish drives. Let's put the ball in the paint. Let's finish in the end zone for some touchdowns offensively. Defensively, let's finish as tacklers. Let's finish drives. Get off the field. I think you look at this, finish strong here tonight for the Eagles against the Jets.
For me, I'm going to be looking at that offensive line. Obviously, we're going to see all the young guys playing tonight, and the buzz around the building is how strong the offensive line unit is on this football team. So I think it's important to see the depth. Who do we have lining up behind Lane Johnson, behind Jason Kelce, behind Brandon Brooks? I think is so important because the offensive line is the brain to this offense. And so I'll definitely be looking at that unit tonight. All right, Fran, before we go, what's your Rico extra points?
Well, you were looking at the offensive line there. I think one position that's been fun to watch on the other side of the football defensively, that Sam linebacker position, that third linebacker when the Eagles go to their base defense. We'll take a look now at a couple of ways in which that position can be used. And I think, look, in today's modern NFL, you think of 5 defensive backs. That 11th defender as a slot corner. You see Avonte Maddox here on your screen. But when the Eagles are in their base defense, that's going to be a third linebacker, a Sam linebacker, who traditionally can be lined up in a stacked role. You call it stacked when they're lined up between the defensive ends, but sometimes they might walk out over the slot like a slot corner. You see there, that linebacker walked out over a receiver or even a tight end. At times they might walk down as a pass rusher and rush off the edge against an offensive tackle. Even go back to last Thursday night, Ella, you saw these linebackers rushing the A-gap as a run blitzer inside. And so when I look at this Sam linebacker position, very versatile role in this Eagles defense. We'll see how big that role is once we get into the regular season, but I'm excited to see what these guys are asked to do and how often they're used in the structure of that scheme.
All right, well, let's hope the rain stays away.
Yes.
Preseason finale about to kick off very soon. That'll do it for the Kickoff Show presented by Axalta. Join us back here for the postgame show presented by Rico immediately following the game. For Fran Duffy, I'm Gabriella DiGiovanni. Enjoy the finale.